Good morning, everyone, to the Puerto Rican colleagues, and good evening to our colleagues in France. I am Zoe Santiago, and I'll be your moderator today. It's a pleasure for us to have you here in the first Tourism and Hospitality Research Workshop, which is the result of the collaboration agreement between Excelia Business School in France and Mendez University in Puerto Rico. Before we officially start, I would like to request that all cameras and microphones remain turned off during the duration of the workshop. The workshop is being recorded. There will be some time for answering questions after each presentation. So we'll have that. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome Excelia's Group Research Director, Dr. Jean-Pierre Helfer. Not sure if he's being able to connect again. He was having a little bit of technical issues this morning. With us as well is Mendez University Chancellor, Dr. Felix Huertas, and they want to do some welcome remarks. So, Dr. Huertas.
Thank you, Dr. Santiago, for the invitation. Buenos días, bonjour, good morning. As the Chancellor of Universidad Mendez Carolina campus today, I want to welcome you to an exciting collaboration between the Universidad Mendez and the Excelia Business School and the Excelia Group in France. Mendez is happy to join forces with the Excelia Business School on this first research workshop. We at Universidad Mendez are committed to bringing international research and learning opportunities to a student and faculty, because we know we live in a connected global community. We also know that international collaboration help our student and faculty learn new ideas, learn cultural perspective and global trends, as well as help them grow professionally. We also understand that international collaboration help provide knowledge and experience beyond the textbook and classroom. I would like to thank to Juan Carlos Sosa, the Dean of Business, Tourism and Entrepreneurship, and Dr. Jean-Pierre, France and Puerto Rico together for research, learning and exchange opportunities. I also want to thank Dr. Valentina Kirova and Dr. Juan Carlos Sosa again for sharing their research today with the faculty and students of Excelia Universidad Mendez. And I'm happy to see that this research workshop will continue. In the future, I hope to invite Excelia Business School to Puerto Rico, or hopefully soon Universidad Mendez may join you in France for another activity. I hope everyone enjoys this wonderful research forum today. Oh, buenos días, bonjour, good morning. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you, Dr. Huertas, for the welcome remarks. I think Dr. Helfer wanted to be here today as well, and he was connected this morning, but we had some technical difficulties, so maybe he'll join us a little later to welcome you all. Our first presentation today is around a paper published by Dr. Valentina Kirova called Wine Tourism Experience, an Ethnography Study. Dr. Kirova is an associate professor of marketing at Excelia Business School in France. She's currently head of the Agility, Innovation, Digitalization Research Axis within the Excelia Group Research Center called the Center of Research for Innovation and Intelligence in Management. Dr. Kirova's current research mainly focuses on strategic marketing, innovation, and digitalization issues, with a specific focus on wine and wine-related issues. She investigates the way that digital technologies are shaping consumers' experiences, organizations, strategies, and actors' interactions, particularly in the tourism and services sector. Her recent research has been published in the Journal of Business Research, Information and Management and Current Issues in Tourism. So please help me welcome Dr. Kirova.
So thank you, Zoe. Thank you everyone for being there. Natalie, thank you also to you for inviting me and for this first presentation. Well, it was a paper published in co-authored with my colleague Tan Votan, working here also in Excelia. We have published this paper in Journal of Business Research a few years ago now, and it is on wine tourism experience, specifically an ethnography study concerning this kind of experience. Just probably a few words about the background of this study. We have worked a few years ago with local producers with some major cognac houses here in France. And we have noticed with my colleague that they were faced with some major issues relative to customer experience and to how visitors perceive the experience of visiting cognac houses. So we have decided to work on this topic. As you all know, probably France is a country with a great winemaking tradition, and wine regions here are major tourist destinations. Just to illustrate this, in 2016, we had in France 10 million wine tourists visiting the country, which represents 5.2 billion euros in terms of spendings. Yeah, it's a huge contribution in the tourism industry in France. The average growth rate of wine tourists visiting French wine regions, French wine destinations from 2009 to 2016 was 33%. It is also important to underline that this sector is increasing quite rapidly with an average annual growth rate of foreign wine tourists of 5%, according to France. So this dynamic development of wine tourism has contributed to build a strong brand image, but also to intensify the competition between wine destinations. For instance, Spain, Italy, and France are strongly competing around this kind of offerings, wine tourism offerings. But it is important also to mention that wine tourism is today furthering the economic development of these wine regions. For instance, Alsace and Bordeaux in France are really well developed in this kind of offer. The second step of this investigation was to define what is wine tourism. According to Hall, there's many authors today working on this topic. According to Hall, wine tourism is classified as a form of special interest tourism, which comprises visits to vineyards, wineries, wine festivals, and wine shows. But we can add to this definition many other aspects, as for example, visiting local attractions or experiencing the lifestyle of local people. Also, why not dining at a typical restaurant and while tasting local wine, staying overnight at vineyards. So many activities can be included in this special interest tourism. The research gap on which the paper is based, well, from an academic point of view, we can see that studies on wine tourism has appeared almost 30 years ago, with some major authors like Getz or Michael and Hall. The three themes that are addressed are relative to destination strategies with analysis of different initiatives and activities related to promoting a wine tourism destination. This is the first stream of research. The second stream of research focuses more on actors, on wineries, and how wineries and wine producers implement tourism strategies. And finally, the third stream of research is relative to customer behavior, and specifically what are the motivations, for example, for choosing a wine destination, or even segmentation analysis of wine tourists. More recently, researchers have looked to another topic. This topic is relative to the experiential dimension of wine tourism. As you know, broadly in tourism marketing research, the customer experience dimension is very important, is at the heart of tourism consumption. This is a central concept in many academic works, but also for practitioners. Today, currently, studies give particular attention to research, for example, on the nature, the dimensions, and also the role of the tourism experience. And we can witness an expanding body of customer experience literature, and which is constantly evolving also, which gives us a logical connection to wine tourism, as wine tourism is really focused on this traditional sides of customer experience, like senses, emotions, enjoyment, etc. So our research question, we saw in the literature review that most current studies focus on the visitor's experience in a winery, a wine route, or an event related to a wine. Some interesting studies, for example, Carmichael or Piquemat. But there is a lack of investigations adopting a more global approach at the level of a wine tourism destination to examine these tourist experiences. So this is the first part of the investigation. And the second explanation is relative to the fact that there is a very little research adopting a global approach of wine experience, which combines everything: culinary offerings, attractions, cultural, recreational activities, or even human interactions. So this research adopts a holistic perspective on destination and also on wine tourist experience, with a research question formulated as follows: what are the dimensions of the wine tourism experience that drive focal marketing strategies of wine tourism destination stakeholders? In order to answer to this research question, we did a large investigation on current research models relative on one hand on customer experience, on the other hand on wine tourism. So we saw that tourism experiences are no longer an optional added value, but something that is mandatory for any tourism offer. Today it is very important to create memorable experiences. So we have decided to base this investigation on the Pine and Gilmore's experience economy model, which we think stands out through a very interesting operational design. I don't know if you are familiar with this model, but the experience economy model has 4 dimensions called the 4 E's: the educational, aesthetic, entertainment, and escapist dimension. And this model has been successfully implemented in many different contexts, as for example, hotels and restaurants, special events, a bed and breakfast experience, heritage trails, etc. So what is this model like? You have here a figure presenting the 4 E's model suggested by Pine and Gilmore. You have certainly the four dimensions, the 4 realms of the experience, but they are situated along 2 continua of this experience. The first one is the participation. This is the horizontal axis, where active participation is when customers personally affect the performance or event. And the passive participation is where customers during the experience do not directly affect or influence this performance. So this first axis is relative to participation. The second one is relative to connection. This is the connection side of the experience. People, visitors, tourists can be either immersed by becoming physically or virtually part of the event, and this is the one end of this axis, and at the other end you have the immersion side, the absorption side, where customers are involved, are engaged with their minds by the experience. So they are mentally involved in the experience. Well, probably the most interesting part of this 4 E's model is that this model is showing what is the richest experience, the optimal experience. Well, the richest experiences are those encompassing aspects of all 4 realms, forming something that was called by Pine and Gilmore a sweet spot, which will balance elements of active and passive customer participation, and in which customers are both absorbed and immersed in the experience. So next step, we have adapted this. I can't move. Yes, sure. Next step in the research, we have adapted this model to the wine tourism sector. We have suggested a specific theoretical framework based on the Quadrifelitti and Fioris model and Pine and Gilmore's model suggested before. You have here the four realms of the experience, with the entertainment experience where tourists are engaged by performances, while, for example, visiting wine shops, wine museums, or wine festivals. The second realm of the experience, the second dimension of the experience, is the educational, where consumers, where tourists will enhance their knowledge and their skills, so they will learn about wine, for example, while tasting, or while attending to culinary wine pairing events or other cooking, craft making classes, etc. Finally, the immersion side of the experience is relative to the aesthetic and escapist dimensions, with the aesthetic dimensions where tourists are enriched by sensual environments while consuming, for example, the winescape or enjoying the typical architecture. And finally, the escapist experience, where tourists become engrossed by participating in a different time or place. Here, it is about escaping the reality. So, for example, vineyard hiking or cycling tours in vineyards are good examples of this escapist experience. A few words about the methodology. I think I talked about why have we chosen this study site. In fact, the wine tourism experience in Cognac is really appropriate for this research because, first of all, this is a delimited area, and also this is a very well-known international brand. The region has also a very long and rich tradition in wine tourism. I don't know if you had the opportunity to visit, but it is really a very exciting place to visit in France. From a methodological point of view, we choose to operationalize our study with an ethnography research method. In this kind of situation, qualitative research methods may be very appropriate to develop and enrich the theoretical knowledge of this experience economy model within, of course, a different destination-specific tourist context. But what is interesting also is that ethnography is based on the collection of consumers' review that contain detailed information published online, and they are really telling the story of their experience. So we are able with this methodology to understand a complex social phenomena, and also it is interesting to see how the researcher will develop teams from the customer's point of view. This method is also non-intrusive and not very expensive to, we know all that it is very difficult today to have data, so it is not very expensive to make ethnography research. So here we have adapted the Cosinet's ethnography procedure to the wine tourism context with a first step that involves identifying the online communities most relevant to study the wine tourist experience. We have chosen TripAdvisor reviews concerning specifically the Cognac region and the Cognac visit. We have collected a little bit less than 1,000 reviews, but we have cleaned them because there were some very short reviews with not very much information. So the final data corpus represents 825 original reviews with more than 50, each one with more than 50 words. We have analyzed this with NVivo. So the summary of our results, first of all, the analysis showed that most of the experiences are positive. Only 8% of the references are related to negative experiences in Cognac. Among the 4 dimensions in the conceptual framework, the experiences which were related to education, the education and entertainment dimensions were predominant. In fact, the aesthetic dimension was really underrepresented. Just, I think, 8 or 10% of the references were relative to the aesthetic dimension, and the escapist dimension, well, the references were there very, very rare. just a few references relative to this fourth dimension, the escapist dimension. What is interesting also is that our data sample contains only one review, which confirms the existence of a sweet spot. To remind you, it was the combination of the 4 realms. Well, with N vivo, it was easy to check this. There was only one review that included references corresponding to all 4 dimensions. This is just a superposition of the N vivo coding stripes. And it is probably interesting also to say here that each review comprises at about 2 subdimensions. So probably it is not very important. You have here a table, a summary table of our results. I don't know if you are able to see everything, but just I will focus just on some important results. So we had 1,835 references encoded with N vivo, and we split these references to positive, negative, and neutral references. So as you can see here, 90% of the references are positive and only 8% are negative. So probably summarize the results. As you saw, the education and entertainment dimensions are really predominant in the analysis. The references related to the aesthetic dimension are really scarce, and the escapist dimension is practically lacking in customers' review. So this general observation illustrates that the existing tourism offers in Cognac mainly focus on the absorption side of the experience, passive or active. And what is interesting in our results is that we confirm the existence of a sweet spot, even if it is something rare. This study confirms the existence of this optimal experience. Concerning the aesthetic dimension, well, we have enriched this dimension with many other aspects, as for example, the importance of Cognac country environment, natural elements, and also man-made and visual improvements in Cognac. And finally, concerning the escapist dimension of the experience, this is probably one of the most frequently listed consumer motivations in tourism research, but here in this context, it is underrepresented. So the main conclusion, I will go fast in this section, but the main conclusion is that instead of diversifying, we can see that current offers in their current offerings, competitors are aligning. Well, visiting packages are obviously not sufficiently diversified, and the aesthetic and escapist dimensions are not enough incorporated in this offer. The conclusions, implications, and further research directions, well, 3 main theoretical contributions. We have asserted the relevance of the holistic analysis and the sweet spot concept of Pine and Gilmore's framework. The study proposes also an integrative conceptual framework to examine wine tourism, and specifically a more extensive description of each one of the 4 dimensions. This is interesting. This is an interesting model because we can use it either as an instrument for wine destination diagnosis or a useful tool for wine destination management. Well, to evaluate, for example, the diversification level of wine tourism offers or how visiting packages can be improved. Moreover, I think that it is also important that accomplishing an aesthetic and escapist experience is very associated today with a state of flow. So practitioners need to focus more on these two realms of the experience. Of course, the main limitation of the study is related to the low generalizability of results, and probably future quantitative research should focus more on developing a detailed measurement scales of each one of the 4 dimensions. Another avenue for research is to consider social demographic characteristics of wine tourists or comparison of 4 realms model for different customer segments. So many avenues for research. Yes, I'm fine. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions.
Okay, thank you so much, Valentina, for this very interesting presentation. We're back now with the audience. I will be the moderator, and maybe if you have any question regarding the 4 realms of tourism. I can see, for instance, Valentina, we are talking about wine tourism, but the topic in the workshop is trends in hospitality. So we have a lot of questions regarding this type of theory. Could it be applied to other disciplines or other categories in the tourism industry? I think it's opening avenues of research linked to the 4 realms, and also about the dimensions. We are all in our fields trying to find dimensions. We are trying to find typology of customers, etc., or determinants in the consumption, determinants in the experience. So it's very interesting to see your research applied to wine tourism, but I think methodology speaking, we have a lot of in common with, I think, different type of research in France or in Puerto Rico or elsewhere in the world applying to other industries, let's say industries talking about experience. So we just began late due to technical problems, and I'm so sorry for your presentation because you were in a rush, Valentina, and it's difficult, I know that. But if you have any questions regarding the presentation, the wine industry, Valentina is a specialist in the field. Maybe you will have some comments, remarks, or questions.
I think our audience could ask questions using the Q&A section. They have a Q&A tab in their view, and they can ask questions. To me, I'm interested. Do you think, I have a question, Valentina, this is Zoe. Do you think that model could be maybe perhaps tested for other types of tourism, such as like coffee tourism or rum tourism? Here in Puerto Rico, we don't make wine, but we're like pros at coffee, for instance, and we have a lot of tourists that come over here just to see the process.
Definitely, yes, sure. You can see that today tourists are looking for highly immersive and distinctive experience. So this model is showing the different aspects of this experience. So it could be implemented in many types of in many sectors. I gave an example. It was implemented. It was tested in the bed and breakfast industry, and I think another another sector, specific sector. But yes, sure. It could be interesting to explore this avenue for research.
Is there other questions? I'm not sure that our audience actually can or know how to do this.
Maybe not right now. I don't know if Alexandro is with us, but he told me that he holds a PhD, and his PhD was based on wine tourism or wine industry or something very close to the research presented by Valentina. So maybe Alejandro, you have a word or some remarks to formulate.
I am with you. I was listening. My research was a little different that the article that it was presenting Valentina. But my question, Valentina, will be: do you think that the model that you run in Cognac, it will be running in other zones, in other areas, and also in other countries? Because we know that in France, the wine tourism is really implanted. Almost everybody, when we think in France, we think in wine also. But in other countries, and especially in countries that the wine is not so developed like in France, how can they
emerging
work?
countries?
For example, I was thinking in a small countries and the countries that the wine is developing now, for example, and the tourism is developing. For example, China, that the wine is becoming stronger and stronger, or something like that. Not the all wine countries.
Thank you, Alejandro. Very interesting question. Yes, sure. The international perspective on wine tourism and also the comparative perspective on wine tourism is really interesting to investigate. There are two sides in this. Old countries, old wine countries with France, Italy, Spain, etc., and new wine producers with the United States, for example, and Australia. So same in China, they have wine also. So we can compare both perspectives. And also comparing the cultural embeddedness of wine tourism in each country could be interesting also. So yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Another question? Or are we good? Maybe we will. I see Luc is raising his hand. Luc?
I never got a chance to ask Valentina about that side of their research. About the applicability from the industry point of view of your recommendations and your finding, not only the cognac companies, because we know some are very big and they have a strong mindset towards attracting visitors, but I was specifically thinking about DMCs, Destination Management Corporations. First, do you feel that they are actually going the way you would suggest? Basically that's my question.
Well, in fact, this research is really practice oriented. We have initiated this research with Rémi Martin. I don't know if you remember, we have published a case study a few years ago and then started to work on this empirical theoretical study. So I think that I sent at that moment, I sent at Rémi Martin this research, so they were very interested on this. I think that if we want, we can work with them on this side, practitioner side of wine tourism experience.
And the DMCs, are there any DMCs specialized in that territory?
Yeah, DMCs. probably cognac houses were more interesting than DMCs. I'm not sure to have the right answer here, but we can try if you want.
Thank you.
Okay,
I have a question.
Yeah?
I have a question. Yes, Valentina, congrats for your research. I read your paper, very interesting. And the question is if you have the intention to do a quantitative research with this framework. This is it's part of ground theory, probably, in terms of qualitative research, but I think that will be very interesting to generalize the results in different contexts and including countries and including other experiences in tourism hospitality, and could be very interesting to develop probably a questionnaire operationalizing with the operationalization of the constructs that are part of this matrix that you present.
Yeah, thank you, Juan. Very relevant suggestion. Here it was kind of the first step of this investigation, and probably it will be very interesting to go ahead and develop a quantitative measurement of and scales of this 4 realms of the experience. So yes, it will be interesting, but we have not started yet to work on that. Probably if you are interested, we can work together.
Well, probably my presentation is related in terms of my journey in research in corporate responsibility, and we initiate very similar as you initiate your research.
Okay.
I will explain this journey in a couple of minutes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Any other questions? All good? I think we will send the article in Puerto Rico. You already have the article, but I think it's always interesting to refer to the article. We have the presentation, then we can refer to the article or some points. And I think it will be really interesting to have a wine tasting session together someday in Puerto Rico or La Rochelle.
Real wine tasting
session. We'll talk about avenues of research, and I think it's very interesting in terms of dimensions. What are the dimensions? And maybe we are seeing 4 realms, but I think maybe we will find some other important determinants in terms of, I don't know, culture, digitalization, wow factor, relationships factor, I don't know. But I think it's always interesting to investigate, and that's thank you so much, Valentina, for this very interesting presentation.
Thank you, everyone.
So maybe Zoe, you are introducing our second speaker and the topic now?
Yes. Thank you, Valentina. That was a great presentation. I think your paper was excellent. It's very interesting. Hopefully, we'll be able to perhaps test that sweet spot model on other destinations like we've suggested. I would like to welcome now our next presenter, which is Dr. Juan Carlos Sosa, with his presentation on Sustainable Business Models, a Tourism and Hospitality Research Agenda. Dr. Juan Carlos Sosa is Dean and full professor of the Division of Business, Tourism, and Entrepreneurship of the Ana G. Mendez University in Puerto Rico. He's been a visiting professor in various business schools in Europe and Latin America. Dr. Sosa's research and consulting experience focuses on global marketing and regional marketing strategies. He's published his papers in world-renowned journals such as the Journal of Business and Industrial Marketing, the Journal of Business to Business Marketing, Journal of Supply Chain Management, and the International Journal of Quality and Service Sciences, among others. He's also made contributions in books and book chapters and has given numerous presentations to academic and business groups around the world in 6 continents, including Europe, Asia, Africa, Australia, North America, and South America. Dr. Sosa is the Associate Editor of the European Business Review, a journal of Emerald Publishing, and is a member of numerous editorial and academic boards worldwide. So I would like to welcome you, Dr. Sosa.
Thanks, Zoe. Thanks, Natalie. Hello, everybody. I will share my presentation. And okay. Can you see it?
Now, it's on.
Yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, thanks. Well, the topic is sustainable business models, a tourism and hospitality research agenda. I will divide this presentation in 3 parts. The first one is the qualitative research that we did during 2008 and 2013, and then the second part is a description of the quantitative research that the group of researchers that participated with me in some papers did during 2013, 2019, 2020. And the third part is the tourism and hospitality research agenda. This research, or several research that we did in this area, was part of the international research group with people from Oslo, Spain, Scotland, South Africa, and Germany. And is based in papers published during 5-6 years with these colleagues in this topic of corporate responsibility. We know that the consumers increased the view of sustainability in the past years as an innate business obligation, and some organizations or many organizations respond to that and realize that the long-term growth of the organization will be based on sustainability efforts. In the past 10 years, the concerns about climate changes, among other important topics, has escalated, and many organizations, for example, the new the nations and other supranational organizations establish goals in terms of sustainability development. And this is the case, the more recent sustainability development goals. And many organizations in different industries face these goals, but the difficulty is that many of them are different and also opposing goals in terms of the strategies of the organization. On one hand, internal and external stakeholders expect that the organization have a financial outcome, but other stakeholders expect that the organization engage in sustainability and exit conflicts in terms of how is the interplay between economic, social, and environmental responsibility in an organization. And obviously, the influence of the firms, organizations, in the society, in the economy, in the environmental, in the natural environment cannot be denied. The profitability is no longer the only focus. To survive in this moment, many organizations need to integrate strategies that are socially and environmentally responsible. And for many organizations around the world, sustainability is not a fad. It's become a strategic imperative to survive and to grow in the next years. In terms of practice and research, the corporate responsibility can be operationalized in terms of the triple bottom line. The triple bottom line that was adopted by Elkinson in 1937 established the interplay between economic, social, and environmental issues or performance of the organization. But the problem with the triple bottom line, first, is that at this moment was very difficult to operationalize. And second, the interplay, the relationship between these three constructs is still not well understood. And the research that were published during the 2000s, 2010, many of them tested the triple bottom line elements separately. And this was the issue that the Goran Svensson and me view in 2008. And when we began our project, we saw that the scholars and the academics and practitioners define business sustainability differently. And for us, we find a gap, a huge gap in the literature and the theory, and we began a qualitative research in Scandinavia, specifically in Norway and Sweden. We established two main research questions. The first one, what is business sustainability? And the second one, how do organizations implement and manage sustainable business practice, not only in the focal company, also in the supply chain or the value chain or business network in the marketplace and society. And then we move to specific research questions. For example, which actors are involved in this effort of sustainability? Which resources? Which activities? How are they interconnected? And what is the status of the best practices in sustainable business models in supply chains? And well, we began this research with case studies between 2008, 2013 in Sweden, in Norway. We did it in different industries, for example, tourism, hospitality, retailing, agriculture, and then move to other countries: Canada, Puerto Rico, Spain, South Africa. And with these cases that some of my colleagues published in different journals, we established three models. The first model was, the objective was to develop and describe a generic model of business sustainability. And this model is a generic model. We began with the earth and then moved to the raw materials, then to the strategies in the organization, and then the stakeholders. For example, we used some cases. In this case of Max Burger, is a fast food restaurant in Sweden, and that is known by its sustainable practices, and also other company, Scandinavian Business City. And we established a series of interviews with this type of organizations and firms that were recognized at this moment for these practices in sustainability. And we began to operationalize the supply chain. In the example, for example, the sources, well, the steps, raw material, transport, procurement, production, distribution, and then the stakeholders that could be the down, stair up, the stakeholders as intermediaries, as wholesales, the focal organizations, the customers, and also the market. And in these interviews, for example, in the case of Scandinavia Business City, the interviews helped to operationalize each part of these steps in the value chain. And as you can see, this is an example of the Scandinavia Business City. For example, for in terms of transport, is the second one in this model. We can see the different tactics that this company used to reach sustainable objectives in this step on their value chain. And also, this is the part, for example, in distribution, in terms of order, flat packaging, direct deliveries, many tactics and many strategies to reach sustainable objectives of this organization. And with this data, based on many cases, we develop and describe the elements of the business sustainability model in supply chain. And we began to operationalize the economic construct, the social construct, the environmental construct as a second order construct in terms of understand how the different organizations approach these three parts of the third bottom line, but also to understand how these parts are interplaying each one. And the third model, it was developed and described business sustainability based on a triple bottom line approach. And then we move to develop a questionnaire. This questionnaire with many questions that were developed based on the qualitative approach. We did it first in Norway with 150 companies that were listed as in the Social Responsibility Index of Norway. And we use this data to prove our model or hypothesis. And also with the factor analysis, we prove the differences between the concepts of the construct that define economic sustainability with social, environmental, or natural sustainability. And this was part of an exploratory research. We published, I think, 4 or 6 papers with this data, and then we moved to Spain. And in Spain, we, with approximately 120 companies, we implement the same questionnaire, and we validate as a confirmatory research or findings or previous finding. And we publish with the sample, Spain sample, approximately 4 or 5 papers. And then we move to compare the two samples, the sample of Norway and the sample of Spain, and we prove our model in these two countries. But one of the main issues for us was to answer the question how interact the ecological, the social, and the economic sustainability strategies in the organization. And with the data of the qualitative approach and the data of the quantitative approach, we develop this differentiation. No? The ecological is the driver, the inputs is the social responsibility, and the outputs, the economic responsibility. And we operationalize with each construct, as you can see in the presentation. And one of the final paper that was published in the Journal of Cleaner Production, also the paper published in the Supply Chain Management Journal, but this one is a very interesting work that I shared with you, and we can see this interaction in terms of the economic, social, and environmental sustainability practices. And we did it with the two samples, the Spain sample and the Norway sample, and we proved our 3 hypotheses. And also we prove that the economic construct of sustainability, corporate responsibility, is defined also for first order construct as a spin-off, trade-off, finance, brand value, cost reduction, etc. Also, as you can see, these constructs are very related to the global goals for sustainability development. This is the 8, 9, 17, and 12 that are related to the economic responsibility, and the 6, 7, 14, 13, and 15 goals of the sustainable development are related to the environmental approach, and the last one, no poverty, zero hunger, good health, quality education, gender equality, reduce inequality, sustainable cities and communities, and peace, justice, and strong institutions are related to the social responsibility of organizations. And what is the next step? The next step for us is to implement this model in specific industries, because the previous research was based in different organizations in different industries, and this is the case of the research agenda for sustainability and tourism and hospitality. In tourism and hospitality, we have a combination of factors that are challenge of this industry. First one, unexpected competition across region industry. Second, the technology progress and technology advance. Third, the change in tourist behavior, and this is very important at this moment, because it's a question in what will be the tourist behavior post COVID. Fourth, regulation and economic conditions. Fifth, outdated beliefs. Sixth, how to serve to the needs, and it's very related to the Valentina research about a wine experience, for example. And if you see the literature, the concept of responsible tourism received considerable attention from scholars. Probably the work of O'Reilly in 1986 could be the base of a series of research about responsible tourism. But meanwhile, exists extant literature in the tourism domains appears to provide little insights on how the triple bottom line of the different aspects of responsible tourism interact, and also how the business models in tourism, in responsible tourism, could be operationalized. Exist some gaps. First, some scholars establish that exists a lack of progress in terms of sustainable tourism research. Exists some debates about the definitions of sustainable tourism, circular economy in tourism, among other topics. Also, some authors indicate that we still in immaturity stage. And recently, a paper of Asmela and Kumar established that exists an urgent assessment of tourism sustainability topic. Some research opportunities. Many papers and research are related to small-scale tourism, to ecotourism, or nature-based tourism. The eco and nature-based tourism and niche tourism is not as synonymous of sustainable tourism. I think it's part of sustainable tourism, but it's very important also to research about sustainable mass tourism in sustainable tourism perspective. Also, the climate change and the discussion of climate change in the past years renewed the focus on environmental aspect and effect in the tourism development. Some avenue for future research. The first one is probably based of the work that I showed before, the structural properties between the TBL elements, economic, social, and natural environment, in different contexts, but specifically in tourism and hospitality. Also exists a need to operationalize the TBL and see the corporate responsibility in tourism and hospitality post-COVID. I think that this is an industry that will be disrupted post-COVID for many reasons, especially in the changes in mindset of customers, and also it will be driven by technology. Also, sustainable experiences, very related to the topic of Valentina, and hospitality operation and sustainable tourism supply chain management. These two topics will be very interesting to future research in terms of economic, ecological, and social drivers, especially post-pandemic. And finally, the avenues for future research, we need a more robust conceptualization of sustainability and also sustainable business models. And one of the industry that can be very interesting to do this type of research is tourism and hospitality. Also, we need to know to expand the research frameworks in terms of issues of antecedents, process, outcomes of these sustainable business models. The third avenue for future research, I think that will be sophisticating and rigorous empirical methods. In my case, as associate editor of European Business Review, Many papers that are submitted to my journal are interesting, but many fails in the rigorosity of the empirical methods. Probably a combination, for example, of qualitative research with quantitative research would be very interesting, and with possibility to publish in very good journals. Also, the role of government, the interaction between the TBL or the different construct that operationalize each part of the TBL, and finally create a dialogue and intersection with other research communities, not only in business or tourism hospitality, also in other areas. For example, in the case of engineering, with the issue of artificial intelligence, for example, on the case of science. And this thing that will be this research agenda that will complement with the presentation that Valentina did before. And well, this is my presentation. Thanks for your attention. Muchísimas gracias. Merci beaucoup.
Okay, thank you so much, Juan Carlos. It was very interesting, very rich, and we can see that we have a very rich approach in terms of methodology, but also it's also leading to the study of sustainable business models in several countries, in several industry, and we can see that their desire to see globally and holistically the phenomenon of sustainable tourism. Just one remark, maybe after questions. Often we say that social is the weakest pillar, in the sustainable approach. Did you confirm this, or do you think that each pillar is comparable?
Yeah, well, I think that the bias of the original research is that we did the sample in Norway. And Norway is one of the 5 countries more sustainable, or with the best sustainable strategies in the world. And we developed this framework with Norway, and then moved to Spain. Spain is one of the 10 countries with the best practices of sustainability. But the challenge is when we move to other countries or regions. For example, in the case of Latin America, it will be very interesting to do this research in countries as Mexico, Peru, Chile, Brazil, and probably the social part of the triple bottom line will be the weak part of the triple bottom line. And it's probably the literature indicates that. But I think that in our case, the research that we published in the Journal of Clinical Production is a structured question model, and is a predictive model. This is very important, because you can see the weakness. In terms of supply chain, exists also a weak part of the value of the supply chain. For example, the best practices of the focal company, but if we move to the intermediaries have a less commitment in terms of sustainability. If we establish the link of the strategies of the focal company with the other stakeholders. But this is a descriptive result, but many of us want to see a predictive model, because the predictive model establishes this relationship, and not only is important for the academia, also to practitioners, because many practitioners can establish or develop new strategies, thinking this relationship between the economic, the social, and the natural responsibility.
Totally right. So we can see different avenues of research. Do we have questions regarding this presentation and all the research agenda, which can be linked now to hospitality and tourism industries? Andreas, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. I cannot find the hand. I don't know. Normally I have the hand button, but somehow with this Q&A, probably in the live system, it's different. Anyways, I hope you guys can all hear me. Thanks for the presentation, Valentina, earlier. I still wanted to comment on that. Valentina, I think you're from the marketing field. I think you would have had to have a glass of wine with your presentation. I think that would have been something, more important than exactly. And thanks for your presentation. Thanks for your presentation. Next time. Perfect. Thanks for your presentation, Juan Carlos. Also, and very, very interesting also to see the development. I mean, it's kind of a development also of yourself, of your research. What made me wonder the most is in your presentation. You said that there will be major effects on sustainability due to COVID-19, whether now in tourism respects or not. I think is not even key. But can you name some examples where you see that sustainability changes? Because if I think about it quickly, I'm like, okay, yeah, people will be more, sustainable in their behavior, will maybe consume more regional. But what did you have in mind there? Or what do you have in mind there? Maybe a few points.
Yes. Well, for example, as the case of Puerto Rico, it exists a difference in terms of operationalization of the corporate responsibility in Puerto Ricans entrepreneurs, if we compare with probably French organization or the case of Norway or Spain. And in the last, I think the 3 or 4 years in Puerto Rico and some countries in Latin America, this topic increase in importance. For example, if you talk with a Puerto Rican organization about the carbon footprint of, I don't know, 5 years ago, they don't know. It's in Scandinavia, many organizations talk about that, but in Puerto Rico, no. But in the past 5 years, with some phenomena, for example, in our case, the Hurricane Maria, the earthquake in 2020, and the COVID. Hurricane Maria was in 2017. Many people change their minds in terms of sustainability. Also in Latin America, for example, in Peru and in Colombia, Costa Rica, Colombia and Peru is other example of the change of mindset in terms of corporate sustainability. And this impact industries. Yeah? For example, in case of Peru, industry has agriculture, tourism that are important industry for this country. And this is a change. And we need to know this change through the time. And I think
and COVID-19. I mean, what do you think with COVID-19? I mean, how did COVID-19? I mean, I think you said that we talk about more about digitalization. Like what was your impression there? I mean, specifically.
In terms of tourism and hospitality, this is an industry that is probably the most impacted industry in COVID. So it's a case of Spain. Spain at this moment a huge problem in terms of its economy. Because many of the economy is based on tourism, and this organization that are part of tourism and hospitality are changing the models to survive. But when you change your model, when you move to the other step of post-COVID, you are a different organization. And I think that this change will disrupt this industry. If we, many people were probably will be more concerned about sustainability practices in its models to survive. And this is for me the interesting issue to research post-COVID in this area. I think that in other industry could be a similar situation, but tourism and hospitality it will be a huge laboratory around the world to analyze these changes that change of the environment, but affect the business models.
Right. It's okay, Andreas? Okay.
It's perfect. Thanks. I almost missed the button.
Thanks a lot, Juan Carlos. I think we don't have any crystal ball to see and predict the future in terms of tourism, but I think it will be really interesting to see how is the situation evolving, how are we transforming or not the traditional model. So it will be very interesting to see for us.
Sorry, Natalie, but exist some reports of the industry. For example, the changes of these multinational hotels, for example, in case of Marriott or case of Hilton, among other examples that are reports that were published recently. And they talk about these changes.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. But when I'm comparing the different international groups, they don't have the same vision of the prediction of the future. For instance, I was just reading this morning a report from Accor Group, the French international hotel chain, saying that there will be a difference between the domestic tourism and the others way of doing tourism. So it's not quite clear for the professionals, and it's quite normal because they see that it will be a turn, there will be a turn, but which and when, it's maybe it's more difficult for them to see, and maybe it depends on the main the main position, the main business, the locations of their own business. So maybe they will have different visions. So we'll see, but it's very interesting to see and study all the changes in the tourism industry. Thank you so much, Juan Carlos. I had a question from Valentina. You sent me a message, Valentina.
Yes, I don't have the raised hand, so thank you, Juan, for this interesting presentation, and it was really exciting to hear about you, about this integrative proposition of a framework for sustainable business models. There are two items that aroused my curiosity. I'm not familiar with sustainable development models, but spin-off and trade-off Could you please explain what is it exactly?
Spin-off we operationalize as a, I have to say the word in English, but our new initiative new initiative that are the words difficult for me.
Like a duplication?
Sorry?
Like a duplication of something?
No. The spin-off are new initiative that are consequences of strategies.
Okay.
The company establishes strategies, tactics, and actions, and then the results create a synergy that establish a spillover or a spin-off or new or create new opportunity or new strategies as a result of the original strategies. This is the case of a spin-off. I think that I have. I don't know if I can, but because I have the. Let me verify quickly if in my presentation. I think that I operationalize spin-off.
You have a measurement, yes, for these items.
Okay. Let me quickly to share trade-off and spin-off. Okay, for a trade-off, the questions, the operational trade-off is, or sustainable business practices require the company make economic sacrifices, lead to be reallocation of resources, imply that non-economic aspect impact on the company decision, etc. And the spin-off or sustainable business practice contribute positively to other aspects of the company business operations. It's more related to synergy. Or sustainable business practices generate unexpected opportunities for the company.
It is more what is unexpected.
Right.
Yes, it's the development of unexpected benefits or opportunities or other things that is
a secondary output, something like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and the questionnaire was very long, right? Good, so very rich, I think, so to treat the data, very good. Do we have another question, or Alejandro, if you are still present? No?
I am still present, yeah. I'm still here, but it's not my field of expertise, so I have to thank you to Juan Carlos for the presentation. I don't have any question at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I think there's a comment from the audience, Natalie.
Okay.
Said it's from Terestela. She says that she talks about blue economy, and she says it's becoming more and more important, especially for coastal areas. She says that sustainable practices are much needed, and that blue economy also impacts tourism. I'm sensing that she's coming from our perspective here in Puerto Rico, where our beaches are like a huge part of our tourism offer. So she says that there are not enough studies in that area, and that it's an area which should be going for and researching.
Okay. Thank you, Zoe, because I've got problem reading the Q&A on this part. It's a little bit blurred on my side. Okay, so thank you very much. Okay, so it was the first workshop, very rich, very intense, and with a lot of avenues of research, maybe common projects to come. So very interesting. Okay, so Zoe, maybe a word for the second workshop. We already fixed a date with 2 presentations on the same model.
Yes, actually, I have here some content to share. Let me see if I can just share it with you.
That's great. Mm-hmm.
Let's see. There you go. I think it's.
Yeah, we have it
on, right? So I really want to thank you all for joining. I apologize for the technical difficulties. We'll figure it out. We'll do it better next time. But I think sustainability, which was today's topic, it's very important, and the concern and all these tragic things that has happened during this year and previous years has put us in context. So it's important to embrace these experiences and actually research better how we can balance all these important things and actually reach that sweet spot that Valentina was talking about. So I invite everyone to perhaps collaborate and start new researches in the topics or the research lines suggested today by Dr. Kirova and Dr. Sosa today. We have another workshop planned, and it's coming up in June, 3 months. It's going to be at 10 a.m. Puerto Rico time and 15 hours France time. We're going to try it again via Microsoft Teams. The topic that we'll cover is the value co-creation in tourism and hospitality, and we'll feature presentations from Andrea Calamuser and Marcos Rodriguez from UAGM. So I hope you can join us for our next workshop and have a wonderful day.
Yeah, save the date.
Save the date, right.
Save the date. Okay, thank you so much. It was really a great pleasure having this first workshop together with La Rochelle and Puerto Rico. Thank you so much for the presenters. And okay, I think we will have a memo or maybe something wrapping up all the presentations away, and we can share something. Again, if the presenters agree in sending their presentations, that maybe we can exchange and extend the reflection about the topics, the interesting topics related to the trends in hospitality and the sustainable tourism agendas. So it will be perfect. And thank you so much for participating. And everybody stay safe, which is the most important. And again, thank you very much, Juan Carlos, Zoe, and everyone in the audience for being there and presenting those interesting papers.
Yeah, as soon as the video is available, because the presentations were recorded, I'll make it available to you.
Very good. Okay. Okay, and just keep me updated, keep me posted about that. Okay, thank you so much, everyone.